Okay, so good day everyone, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to another financial modeling section. So we're having our special guest by the name of Gospel Obele. So we've taken us on the topic investments and the economy. As you all know, your business is also a financial company in Nigeria. So your business is a registered Microsoft Excel consulting, financial modeling, business intelligence, data analysis, and enterprise solution firm in Nigeria. We specialize in helping companies and high-value professionals be on top of their business data. So most of you already know we're also a training company. So we train in financial modeling, Power BI, Excel, and big data. So these are our calendar for our upcoming trainings. So on the 27th to 28th of May, we're having big data analysis, Power Query, Power Pivot, and VBA, which means Visual Basic Application. Also on the 28th to 29th of May, we're having advanced financial 28th to 20th. So I'll just give a brief description of our special guest, Gospel. So Gospel is a research and development economist with a focus in emerging and frontline markets. Okay, he's certified in Oxford Business School with evidence in public policy. He has a bachelor's degree from Kolkata. Gospel has made over 150 plus media interview appearances in the past 3 years with top media houses like Aljazeera, Arise TV, BBC Africa, and also channels, and also so many. He's also a former tax analyst for ExxonMobil, customer market analyst with Unilever, research analyst with Business Day. Gospel has so many profiles. I had to reduce it because of the time and everything. So with no further ado, I want over the section to Gospel. So Gospel, over to you. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
On investment and the economics of PreElections. All of those narratives get to shape the demand side and the market, the demand and the supply side of the market. And that demand and supply dynamics will be reflected in every, literally permeate every area of life, from buying and selling to currency exchange to industry performance to macroeconomic indicator performance and all that. So it's very critical, that we understand how events will shape out in the coming year, and what investable opportunities are available for us going forward. So I'll do a rundown on what to expect, do a rundown on consumer and market trends as well. I'll share a bit about the outlook and how we can model for growth in 2022, looking at the PreElections and all. So what do we expect? It's important for us to take cognizance of the fact that the economy, as it were, can be likened to an environment, And in the larger scheme of things, looking at doing business and as an investor who's seeking to invest in different sectors, you will be operating to a large extent in the context of an environment. Now, that environment has a lot of variables at play, You have the core economy, where you talk about inflation, currency management, and all of that. Then you have industrial sectors. You also have the organized private sectors, the MDAs and the associations. You have the core markets, consumer markets, demand side markets, supply side markets, value chain markets, and all of that. You have the competition, the different brands doing what they want to do, different banks, different startups, everybody's in the same market, in the same environment, trying to make something work. Then you also have the externalities. Externalities are external influences on the Nigerian economy or external variables influencing the doing business environment, as it were. Now, as an investor or as an individual who may be working in an organization where decisions will be taken in a pre-election year, it makes sense to understand all that will be happening from the lens of this environment. So when we talk about the economics of pre-elections, we're talking about everything within the context of the doing business environment, that is subject to the events from pre-elections, and how all of that will also shape investment decisions, how all of that will also shape the opportunities, and how to maximize these opportunities as well. Now, it's critical for us to note that for 2022, especially as we go into the pre-elections here. All right, three major things will play out. And we understand that there will be what we call political correctness. Political correctness simply means that it will not be a usual year. And all right, I mean, if you're someone who is really very interested in history, you can go back and look at 2019, 2018, 2014, and all of those previous years. For every pre-election year, there's what we call political correctness. Political correctness simply means that the government of the day or the political economy, all right, will begin to make decisions, policy choices, on areas that are priority to them within the lens of retaining power in the coming elections. So meaning that what may be economic priority to everybody may not be economic priority to the government. What is economic priority to the government is what will enable their chances to win in the coming elections. All right, so that's political correctness. Now, secondly, is the context of social correctness. Social correctness is simply how consumers are navigating and how consumers are seeking to engage within the changing times in terms of pre-elections and all that. Social correctness simply means how are consumers spending? Is there any form of panic buying? How are brands responding? How is the market changing? And how are consumer narratives changing within the context of pre-elections? All right. So what is changing? How is it changing? And how can it be? And how are consumers voting as well? Is what we describe as social correctness. Now, between the middle of policy, political, and social correctness is what we call business correctness. That means how are businesses evolving within these critical changes? All right, where are businesses spending on? How are they rolling out their programs and initiatives? How are they doing business for profits? All right, and all of this context, how is it being influenced by the political narratives, being the fact that it's a pre-elections. Right? So now the idea of moving forward is being able to understand these different dynamics and to play accordingly. Anybody that chooses not to move with the wind in quotes, all right, would be subject to the threats, inconsistencies, uncertainties, and I may even lose out of the opportunities of the spirit. Okay. But then we need to know that critical things are changing within the entrepreneurial and doing business landscape. Consumer fear of the unknown is on the rise. All right, income levels are shrinking. I mean, you can see the inflation numbers. There is increasing loss in the confidence from a social and economic standpoint. All right, there's growing consumer choices, and there's also growing insecurity and health risk concerns. But then again, we need to take note of the events that will shape 2022. Which is events that will mold the economics of pre-elections, events that will mold buying and selling, events that will mold where investable opportunities are, events that will mold how we should respond, events that will mold how we spend and how we should approach the season. Number one is the core pre-elections itself. All right, the fact that elections are very close, and the fact that it comes with a lot of inconsistency, a lot of uncertainties are enough to shape the outcome of the economy. Second is to note that there's also increased money circulation, right? Money will rise. The amount of money circulation will increase because of elections and activities that are building up to the elections. Now, but take note, increased money circulation does not necessarily mean that people will get richer. It simply means that money in circulation will be tilted more in favor of sectors spiraling or coming out within the context of these changing realities. So as pre-elections are happening, as activities are unfolding, as economic indicators are either worsening or stabilizing, opportunities will be evolving. And most of these opportunities will work them as window opportunities. There'll be window opportunities in the money market. There'll be window opportunities in the capital market. There'll be window opportunities in agriculture, in other industries. All right, there'll be window opportunities everywhere. When we talk about investments and investment opportunities, we're not talking about just the money or capital market only. We're talking about what opportunities will rise in different industries that I can fund, that I can invest in, that I can get an equity on, that I can partner with somebody and take an advantage on. So a lot of conversations, right? There'll be birthing opportunities and investable opportunities as well. So need-based partnerships is another major point, that things will be evolving, people will be seeking to partner more, institutions will be partnering more. And with those institutional partnerships, collaborations, advocacy, and all of that, would also come evolving opportunities, all right? But despite the seemingly worsening state of the economy, right, Nigerian consumers are still spending. Nigerians spend as much as 180 billion on water every year, as much as 4 trillion naira on entertainment and lifestyle. So consumers are still spending as much as 22.7 trillion naira on food. All right, and then you have about 17.4 trillion naira spent on non-food items. That's a lot of numbers. But then within the context of this changing narratives is the fact that inflation hits the consumer differently. You have growing pressure points on fast-moving consumer goods. Growing pressure points, excuse me. All right, we have growing pressure points in areas where, unfortunately, people need to get by on a daily basis. So the average things you need, clothing, water, shelter, food, transportation, those basic necessities that consumers need on a daily basis are unfortunately the highest attraction points for inflation. All right. So we need to take note of that whilst planning to seize opportunities. All right. But then what is driving market behaviors in 2022? We realize that, number one, the worsening state of the economy. The worsening state of the economy is a major block that is driving market behavior. Individuals are seeking to make profit and stand out within the context of changing economic realities. Now, there's also a need to hedge against risk. This is why you see a lot of people investing in real estate, a lot of people seeking to save their monies in dollars and every other thing else. So there's an increasing need to hedge against risk. Now, there's a growing personal optimism. So being the fact that the country is worsening and people are seeking to hedge against risk, people are also optimistic about their personal lives. But guess what? People are not optimistic about the future of the nation. And people are not optimistic about their own future in the future of the nation. Are we together? So individuals are only optimistic for themselves, not optimistic for the nation, and not optimistic of the future in the future of the nation. But then there's also a need for companionship and vulnerability. All right, there's an increasing need for vulnerable groups. There's an increasing need for acceptance. There's an increasing need for companionship. There are deeply cultural nuances, especially with the whole IPOP conversation, with the whole insecurity in the West and all of the evolving narratives around insecurity is deepening cultural nuances. Excuse me. There's also a growing awareness and cluster influence. Consumers are increasingly becoming more aware, and they're becoming more aware within the context where they serve. All right, so there's a growing awareness and cluster influence by consumers and different stakeholders. All right, but then consumers and individuals, business owners, investors are seeking to be much more in control of the outcomes. So the big question is, how can I be in control of my outcome without necessarily having to be open to the risk associated with that outcome? So within that context, there's also rising aspirations. Consumers aspiring for bigger things, aspiring for better life, and all of that. And there's need for entertainment and lifestyle. So what we have is a mixed reality narrative within the context of changing times, VUCA realities. So now, I'm sure most of us have heard of the word VUCA. VUCA simply means volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Now, within the context of the VUCA reality, you also have a situation where, because Nigeria is an underdeveloped or relatively developing economy, our vocal reality tends to be much more volatile. It tends to be much more uncertain. It tends to be much more complex. It tends to be much more ambiguous. Within all this evolving context are opportunities and many other things that are informing investment decisions. But then within this context, what is the outlook? It's going to be a slower, non-inclusive, but much more vulnerable recovery. We're also seeing a situation where that recovery is going to coexist with increasing cost centers. All right? That means as recovery is happening, inflation is rising. Inflation is rising because recovery is not taking off from structural balancing. When I mean structural balancing, I'm talking about a productive economy. I'm talking about proper exchange rate regimes and all of that. All right. So there'll be recovery coexisting with increased cost centers. Then the market will begin to redistribute itself. All right. Today the consumer side is much stronger. Tomorrow is going to be the demand side. Next tomorrow it's the supply side. The market will keep redistributing itself. All right. And that would how would I put it now? It will bring a lot of cause for worry when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to stability, and also making strategic investment decisions. But more importantly, what are sectors to watch? This is the crux of today's conversation. What are the key sectors we need to watch, or what are the sectors that hold a lot of opportunities for investment in the pre-election season? If you are in any of these sectors, you will be in business for a long time, especially in this period, if and only if you know how to strategically position yourself. If you're not in any of these sectors, but you have money, the goal is to partner with an institution or individual who knows its onions in any of these sectors and look for creative way to explore the investment opportunities. You may not be in any of these sectors technically, but you may have a skill that's associated with any of these sectors. The goal also is to take your skill and look for strategic areas where you can, add value, especially within the window opportunities in the season. Now, when we talk about investment opportunities in pre-elections, majority of investment opportunities in pre-elections will be window opportunities. But some of those window opportunities will be stable over a period of time. For instance, now, there's going to be an increase in the demand for safety relocation. So if you notice, people will be seeking to relocate to places where there are more gated streets, better security, because nobody knows what the outcome will look like. So real estate is going to be on the rise for many reasons. All right? Real estate is going to be, and I'm going to talk on that. All right? But then again, on the sectors to watch, number one, food and FMCGs. If you're in food and FMCGs, then the market for you this year is actually bigger than you thought. And that's because with intensifying activities on pre-elections would come intensifying needs for basic care. All right? Basic care, not because people want to eat more, but because the economics of that period is stirring up demand for food and demand for FMCGs. Political parties will be buying more food. That may affect the prices of things, all right? People would want to increase their inventory of food stock, all right? People will be thinking of safety and convenience as such. There'll be lots more. There'll be an increase in the order for food, in people placing order for food. There'll be an increase in restaurants and all of those consumption touch points and all of that. And that's because consumers are looking for ways to stay safe, stay healthy, stay convenient, stay comfortable, and more or less stay steps ahead of what's happening right now. Now you also have health and technology. Health and technology because the post-pandemic, all right, leaves us with so many options. And one of the major headline options is to be in control of our health outcomes. So any health business infused with technology would have a stand chance of seizing opportunities within this period. Thirdly, will be digital media and publishing. All right, if you are working in a TV station, or you own a media blog, or you work in a television station, or you are a graphics designer, or you're a creative person, this season is your season of opportunities. So you need to invest in those opportunities, either through your skills, like I mentioned earlier, either through your financing, all right, like I mentioned now, or either through your professional practice within that industry. But what I would also advise is you need to use partnership and collaborations as a model to seize opportunities in these places. So there's going to be a lot of adverts, a lot of campaign, and because PreElections generally come with more events and more activities, then digital media and publishing will be at the fore. Digital media and publishing will be at the fore of these changes, all right? Now, agriculture and agro-processing, like I mentioned, that would be on the increase because food and FMCGs are also on the increase. Oil and gas will be on the increase because the technicalities around the petroleum industry bill would create some opportunities, that can be invested in and all of that. Then you have logistics. Due to the fact that the demand for safety and convenience will be on the rise, all right? And events and activities will be on the rise. There'll be a rise as well in mobilities. So investing in logistics would be a good business opportunity for anybody who has excess capital. Fintechs will be on the rise, all right, for some certain reasons around being able to take control of your finance and, lesser charges and all of that. And it's also the fact that the narrative of PreElections is such that a lot of fintechs will be used as tools, to foster spending as well. So you need to be, if you have a fintech organization or you have an investment in a fintech company, you need to review your investment and be sure that you are tooling your investments properly. Insurance and real estate will be on the rise because there's a rise or there's a need to hedge against risk. People are looking for safety relocations. People are looking for a plan B. So if you work in a real estate company or you work in an insurance company, you need to begin to rethink your perspective to the opportunities and what you should invest in to make the most of these opportunities. Now, because PreElections comes with heated events, heated narratives, heated media spending, heated activity spending, and all of that, we need to understand that the gig economy, the Japa economy, and the risk hedging economy will be on the rise. MCs will make a lot of money. Event planners will make a lot of money. All right. Food vendors will make a lot of money. Event halls will make a lot of money. T-shirts, prints, anything that has to do with events and large-scale activities, all right, would be on the rise. Now, these opportunities are set out for us to think of creative ways to engage them. Like I mentioned earlier on, investment opportunities in this context does not necessarily mean money or capital market. It means seeing the opportunities birthed from supply and demand distribution and taking advantage of those opportunities, especially within the context of these 9 sectors that have been highlighted. So, how do you model for growth? It's very important that we begin to think of the consumer as an individual who we can scale in clusters, who we can engage creatively and provide their needs more strategically. Preferably, it's important for us to know that the average consumer in Ibadan is much more richer and has a higher purchasing power than the average consumer in Lagos. So when you are trying to look for places and opportunities where you can invest in markets where there is a higher purchasing power and that purchasing capability exists in clusters. So if you want to invest in a business also or in an SME, invest in SMEs or invest in companies that have footprints in other cluster locations outside Lagos and Abuja only. Why? Because you are like going to be transparent within the context of high-level FUCA engagement now. You're positioning the investments and seizing on the opportunities, to take advantage of market demand capacity, especially when it comes to effective demand, right? People's ability to buy and their willingness to buy also. And this is also very important because you also need to think of how you can seize the opportunity and then keep your investments for the long term. All right. So when we say the economics of PreElections, we are saying where is the money? Where is the money? Who has the money? And who will be willing to spend this money for a long time? That is the summary of today's conversation. So once you identify where the money is, which are shown to us the 9 sectors, who has the money, which are shown to us in terms of both the sectors and the market, the locations, the cities, the consumers. I'm showing that to us right now. And then what is the size of the opportunity? All right. So the size of the opportunity is a function of the clusterized size of the opportunity. So Ibadan, Ogbomoso, and Ilorin are richer markets compared to Lagos as a standalone. Kano, Zaria, Kaduna are richer markets compared to Abuja as a standalone. So you want to tap into richer clusters. Invest in businesses and opportunities that are positioned to reach richer clusters. That's the only way you can make sensible investments in a pre-election season. All right? So this is my major encouragement for us today. And in closing, I'll say we should respond, don't react. Do not get carried away with the selection of candidacy. Do not get carried away with political narratives. All right? Focus on what is most important. As an individual who has skills of finance or relationships you can maximize to invest. All right? We think premium, build capacity for new markets, right? Think the technology, and of course, never engage without data. All right. So with this point of mine, I'd like to say thank you for taking your time to listen to this presentation today. I hope it was worth the time.
I have a question. Okay, Uche is my name. Yeah, Gospel, thanks for the rich expository stuff. So, the issue is speaking to these non-Abuja Lagos clusters or locations, you see that some of them are not ready for some kind of businesses. So let's use logistics as an example. The technology powering logistics today that makes it worth the while and makes it profitable beyond what it was before are not really accepted in some of these locations like Enugu, Owerri, Aba, because I've actually done some kind of survey there. It's a potential market. There are potential markets, yes. But right now, they can't, even the common boat Uber, they don't really patronize them. You will say an Imo State have a lot of students, these hospitality, social activities, but yeah, they don't use these guys, right? So how do we align this unreadiness to the era via technology to what you said from a sustainability point of view? I don't know if you get my question.
Yeah, I do. I understand the question. My own thoughts would be that a lot of markets in Nigeria are pretty much unorganized and slightly informal as well. And the creative way to go about it is to first look for a way you can use technology to organize the market. So create a community and organize the market for your advantage, and then tap into that market you've organized for yourself. So once the beneficiaries of the market begin to enjoy the functionality of the product or solution you're offering them, having organized the market, you begin to see that you'll be attracting or you'll be attracted to other players in the market or stakeholders or individuals in the market who also need your solution. So I understand what you're saying properly, but the first point of call is to organize the market. How can you creatively think of organizing your market within the mix, within your solution mix? So that's a very big question that you may need to think of. And once you can solve that problem, then you're much more in a strategic position to take off in terms of maximizing that opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I don't have a luxury of time to break that down, but this is the first, easiest way to talk about it. The average person who earns 200,000 naira in Ibadan is richer than the average person who earns 200,000 naira in Lagos. That's what I mean. And that's because the average person in Lagos is faced with more higher cost of living than the average person in Ibadan. So when you take the differentials on the purchasing parity, you see that the average person in Ibadan has much more amount of money to spend if he or she is prudent. So you're assuming that both parties are prudent, all right, with their finances. You realize that the average person in Ibadan has much more money to spend or much more window to spend than the average person in Lagos. That's what I mean.
Yes, thank you. I want to thank you very much for the insightful presentation of the outlook of the economy, particularly at this time. But my question is, what are the opportunities that are coming up in the telecom sector? Recently, we see that MTN, their capitalization shot up so much, and it seems to have dominated even the financial sector. Now, and we also see that things like mobile money is coming on board, which will tap into the economy of the cash flow according to the banks. I see this as a possible opportunity to that maybe how we can tap into it as a small scale investor. Thank you. Hello?
All right, yeah, I got a question. Yeah, in my thoughts, honestly, telecoms is very big. So I think, first of all, you need to pick a niche. And you need to be able to apply your telecoms in another market that will profit you. Because the costs, the barriers to entry in telecoms is also very high. So the strategic question is, how do you want to plug in the solution or the value you have for telecoms in another sector that benefits you to a large extent? So I think you probably need to refine the thinking a bit forward. And if you cannot at all, what partnership model or institutional collaboration can you engage, all right, to take advantage of the advantage of the opportunities you find in telecom sector? Also important to note that anything you want to do in the telecom sector requires a lot of documentation, processes, and all of that. So the barriers to entry is not really, really low, and it can be frustrating for an SME. So I would want to leave you with this context so we think. If you have more questions, just send me an email. Yeah. All right. First of all, I'd like to say that you need to define what exactly it is you want and begin to look for people who have gone ahead. Technically, that's what I did. People who have gone ahead and then be willing to go through the process of learning, but know exactly what it is you want and be very visionary about your pathway. Once you begin to do that, then be very open to changes and be very open to seizing opportunities as well, especially if those opportunities are not so convenient for you. So once you begin to do that, somehow the universe will be in your favor and the opportunities begin to open up for you. Thank you for having me.